There you go.
Thank you so much, Tina. And by the way, none of us would be here without Tina Campbell. So I would like to give a real shout out to Tina. 6 years ago, she was walking the streets trying to get people to join this organization. And there were a lot of networking organizations out there, but along with Chaz, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, she came out and she got all of the people that are on this call right now interested in this organization based upon building relationships. And what we've done, this is all based upon the idea that relationships, as long as we build relationships and we become relational instead of transactional, we can change people's lives. And what we've done in this region is, as many of you know, we've done quarterly workshops, training workshops, where experts from this region have presented on the 5+1 book that Chaz Wilson has authored. And the five areas, the formula is thinking, targeting, tracking, timing, and team building. Those are the 5 T's. And now we're up to the +1, which is all about networking. And for those of you who may know, or may not know, I should say, some of the history of Chaz. Chaz was a member of an organization, another networking organization, as a member, and I believe as a president of the chapter. And at the time, he had missed several meetings because he had a family medical emergency. And when that happened, he missed a few meetings. And he was greeted with a lovely letter from the organization that said, "Thank you very much for your service, but we don't need you anymore." Instead of finding out what was going on or what was wrong, basically, they sent him that lovely letter. And undaunted by that, he decided that there needed to be a better way to do things, and there needed to be an organization based upon some core principles, which we all know. And the most important of those principles was building relationships first. We know about a guy by the name of Jeffrey Gitomer who wrote the Little Red Book of Selling. And the Little Red Book of Selling has a core principles, which are, we buy from people that we know, we like, and we trust. That's all relational. So networking can be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard. But as Chaz will talk about, as I'm sure when he's speaking, he is going to talk about the idea that you can change your life one relationship at a time. It's not transactional, it's relational. And as we all know in this region, we don't just do business together, we do life together. That's relational. So what I'd like to do is to take this opportunity to invite to speak for 45 minutes to an hour, the person who is responsible for us being here, the author of several books, 5+1, The Entrepreneur's Formula for Success, and Now Make Good. He is the host of Connect, Share, and Prosper, and he spends his time teaching us how to be better business people, better people in general, and how to use the power of relationships to help us grow, prosper, and as the wise statement that we hear every week says, to educate, equip, and empower entrepreneurs so that they can leave a legacy beyond the business. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome Chaz Wilson.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Can you guys hear me all right? Audio is good? Awesome, thank you. And again, likewise, I would really be remiss if I didn't thank Tina as well. Tina and I got to spend some time last week together, and what's interesting is we were reflecting on some of our early discussions and meetings of master networks, and what I absolutely loved is that Tina saw the vision of how it could help people and how we could impact people's businesses, and that's why she jumped in right away. And gosh, how many years has it been, Tina? Is it 7 years, 8 years?
Yeah, so we're going on 8 for me, but I was around while you guys were kind of creating it with Dave, and then that's when I ended up going into the region.
That's amazing. So appreciate it. And Jim, thank you for the introduction. Tina, am I able to share my screen as well? All right, here we go. All right, so let's talk about the master skill here for a second. And we'll go through a little bit of this. Now, this is what I want to talk about, the master skill. And it's called a skill because really it's a constant evolution and a constant work. And it's mastery of that skill being the master skill. And so I'm going to share with you some things, not only that we talked about in the book, but some things that I've learned over time and I'm still developing over time. And even some great things that I've learned from each of you. And I saw some references to that already in this group that I'm going to point out as we go through this. My goal is not to take the whole time. My goal is to just share some thoughts with you about how you can improve this skill, what to actually do, and then open it up for any questions that might be out there of, some how-to or frankly, any questions in general. But I want to start with this because it's fascinating to think. I talked about this there was a symposium that I was asked to speak on a couple of weeks ago called the Return on Relationship Symposium. And I was asked to speak on this, and I taught the master skill. And what was fascinating to me in that conversation, and maybe this is the same for you, is, sometimes I step back and I think what we're talking about is so basic. I mean, we're really just talking about basic communication between humans and how to grow that and how to impact people. And yet it is becoming a lost art. It's becoming this thing that, even not even just youth, but adults and so on, the way that technology is put into our everyday lives. Now, of course, we couldn't be here without this technology. So the master skill really comes where high tech and high touch come together. And I don't want that to be lost. And so as we look at this, I'm always fascinated by this skill. And many people who have gotten to know me, and I looked through really quickly some of the names on here that I recognize, and it's good. I mean, some of you I've known for a number of years, and some of you I look forward to meeting you and getting to know you. For those of you that don't know, and maybe a reminder for those that do, I grabbed this photo because I think what's interesting about this photo is that often I get chances to speak on stages, and sometimes people do ask me to, and sometimes you get chances to speak in front of rooms. And what I'm struck by is that if I go back to the days, it wasn't always easy for me to speak to people. And how can I teach a skill set of networking when, quite frankly, I'm more of an introvert than people know? I'm more reserved, I'm more quiet. If we went to an event together, you'd probably be like, dude, how do you run a networking event, a networking organization? You're the guy sitting in the corner. I really am that type of person. And so let me take you back for those of you who don't know. And I grabbed this photo, and this is me at I think 5 years old. And the reason why this picture means a lot to me about what it means, and you'll see why I'm sharing this. And for those of you that are introverted, I want to give you some hope in this skill set, right? Because it's your mindset, your skill set, and growing your network together. I have been a very shy young man, and growing up, my mom, we lived right down the street from my elementary school. My mom used to have to walk me to school every day, and I would literally just hold on to her leg. I was so shy. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to make eye contact with anyone. I think my parents thought it was quite a problem. So what my dad's solution was, hey, let's get him into athletics. Let's put him into sports, and maybe that he will meet people. And can any of you relate to this, or you have kids that are like this, or you were a kid that was like this? Like, it was just painful and awkward and hard. And I remember going to play soccer, and this photo was the soccer photo. You can see how thrilled I look in my eyes and my face, right? Like, I'm so excited to be there. And I'm there to play soccer, and this is picture day. Now, this isn't like today where they take digital photos. This is, a guy behind a camera, and they used to have these boards that they would set at your feet that you put these little letters on that had the name of the team, and they'd spell your name, and then they would step back and take a photo, and that was your team photo. Well, what's interesting about this picture is that to just demonstrate how painful this was for me is that when he would come up and he handed me the ball, and when he walked back to the camera, I actually pulled the ball up over my face. I pulled it up over my face. I did not want my picture. So, hey, Tina, maybe you can help me with the sound there. Somebody's mic is on.
It's Deborah's iPhone. There you go.
Thank you. So he walks back behind the camera and he keeps walking up to me. He's like, son, you got to pull the ball below your face, or we're never going to get this photo. And this is him, I think probably on the third attempt, finally getting me to pull the ball down low enough that he could snap a photo. And again, why is this important? Probably most of you are very extroverted and this comes easy and comes natural. For me, it really doesn't. It is definitely something I work at daily and I work at constantly. And so if a shy little kid who couldn't pull a ball down below his face to take a photo now gets the opportunity to speak on stages all over, and again, and not about me, I'm just saying, like, this is a process that can work for anyone. So if you identify, first of all, I'd love to know, for the sake of the group, if you identify more as an introvert, would you go ahead and put that in the comments? I would like to see how many people identify as an introvert versus an extrovert, because there's actually a little demonstration I want to do. So go ahead and just put that in the chat if you do. There's no right or wrong, of course, but I want to demonstrate something here, and we'll kind of look and see, like, look how many people are right. I mean, I can't even keep up fast enough, right? Like, a lot of you, oh, introverted extrovert. Like, I love that. Love that. Look at all this. Like, so this is like, we're in good company, right? This is how we're feeling. This is, for a lot of us, this is hard. You think about, and I've talked about this many times, when we moved from Minnesota to Texas, and I remember having these discussions with my kids about starting a new school. I have 5 children, which I'll talk about here in a second, but you know, when I would talk to them about starting school, they were so nervous. And it's a new school, and I said, well, first of all, we're in an area that's growing. There's lots of new kids, so you'll be in, you know, good company with that. But the thing that they were most nervous about, which surprised me and shocked me, in starting a new school, I'd love to know if you think, what was the most nerve-wracking part of starting a new school, do you think, for my kids? I'd love to know. Go ahead and put that in the chat. I'd love to see if anyone nails this. So if you can imagine, I'm sitting here talking to my kids. Yeah, making new friends. Yeah, some of you have heard the story. Or they're not having any friends. Yep. So here's what it was. I started talking to them, and they're like, they had their schedule, or they knew what class they were in, and I walked them to school. And you think about this, right? That's it. They go into class and they have an assigned seat. They sit down. They know where they're supposed to sit. But lunch is not that way. And they were most nervous about lunchtime. Like, you walk in, you got to grab a tray, get your food, sit down, and like, where do I sit? Who's gonna like make eye contact with me? Do you know what? I want you to do this for me next time you go to a social event or a networking event. I want you to watch adults. They're no different than kids in a lunchroom. I mean, it is like, to a T, we are no different. You walk into an event. I was just at a mastermind with, you know, gosh, I was probably at least qualified to be in this room. These are people running $100 million, $200 million businesses. One of the gentlemen's just got an offer to have his business bought for $1 billion. So I'm sitting in this room and I'm realizing, like, here's all these high-end earners, and we're all exactly the same. Everyone's looking for the first connection they know that they can walk up and be like, hey, I know you. It anchors us into the room. Okay, we're no different than kids. And this is exactly what it was for my kids. If any of you remember the show Cheers, right? When Norm walks into the bar, what does everyone yell? Norm. Like, everyone wants to know his name, right? It's in the song, Norm, right? Like, this is no different. So if you know this, if you're armed with this knowledge, yeah, we're just big kids. If you're armed with this knowledge, what kind of a leg up do you have? How are you, you know, what kind of ammunition, if you will, do you have walking into this? Like, you know, all the things, you totally have the leg up. You know what people's needs are. They want to feel welcomed. Exactly. They want to feel welcomed. They remember their name, etc. Like, it's super easy. And I'm going to share with you a couple things that I've done recently to take this to just a completely different level of impact, right? And as I go through this, here's what I'd like you to do. Okay. Can I ask this is the favor I'd like to ask of each of you. I want you to hear, like, I want you to write down what you hear, not just what I say. Okay. Because as I'm going to go through some of this, you're like, yeah, I've heard this piece before, but you've heard me say it, or you've heard others say it, but what are you hearing right now? Meaning, I'm a big believer. I follow a lot of emotion and intuition, and for me, God's a big part of my life, and I try to follow that. And so sometimes I'm in a training, and it's like, I've heard it. Tina just did a training on culture and leadership, and probably I've heard 80% of what she said probably 4 or 5 times. And yet there was something she said that led me to a thought that I wrote down that now I'm applying differently in my business, but yet I've heard that training 7 or 8 times probably. For you, I want you to hear what you need to hear today out of this. I promise if you're open to that, you'll get it. You'll get what you need in this, because there's probably somebody's life right now you could make a huge impact on by just hearing one thing that could make that difference. Okay?
You could fix that.
You guys, if you could just mute, that'd be awesome. All right. So as I go through this, let me share this thought with you. All right, who's my co-host that can help me with that? Awesome, thank you. All right, so here we go. And by the way, I'm not that worried about it if it happens. It's happened to me before too, right? Like we've been on how many Zoom calls and sometimes we forget to mute. It's fine. So here's the thing. Everything in my life of significance has come through a relationship. I would imagine the same is for you. If you take just a second, we're in this time of season and holiday of Thanksgiving, and a lot of people are doing similar to what I'm doing. Is I'm going through sort of a gratitude reminder each morning of things I'm grateful for. And like the thing that I keep realizing is everything that I have around me of any kind of significance is always through a relationship. I was visiting with my son the other day. One of my twins, my youngest 2 are twins. In fact, it was the one where talk about the medical emergency that we had. And I was talking to him and I was thinking for a second, I was like, all of the things that I've been able to provide, let's just say provide for my son, is nothing in comparison to the joy he brings me. And I'm like, man, everything that like fills me up, everything that like comes into my life is always through a relationship. So why am I not, this is the question I ask myself, why am I not just spending more intentional effort, more intentional time every single day, forgetting a lot of tasks and just pouring into people more? Like I do it a lot, but not like how could I do it more? Because there's so much value there with people. So I want you to just stop for a second and think, what are like 3 things in your life that are super significant, that mean a lot of value to you? And just take a second and write those down. Just take like a minute. What are 3 things that are super valuable to you? There's no judgment. Like if your car is valuable to you, great. Like no judgment. If you're whatever it is, just write it down for a second. 3 things, right? My kids, my health, my work. Love that. My family, my business, my faith. Yes. Okay, as you guys are writing this down, I want you to think about something. I would imagine in some way, some fashion, all of those have come to you or are valued through a relationship, right? So if we know that, how are we treating those? What are we doing to impact that? So let me just walk you through a couple of things to help you that really are, and I'm not going to go page by page in the book, right? You've got, I would imagine all of you have the book, right? 5+1. Something that's interesting, I just share a side note. We were in this leadership conference Tina and I were at, and somebody mentioned that they read, they try to, and successful people read like 80 books a year or whatever the number is. And I used to do that. I used to try to read and consume, and I've got libraries of books that I've read. And the reality of it is, instead of reading like 80 books a year, I'm trying to go back and find 5 books that I read 80 times. And the reason is like, there's so much good stuff. Even sounds so self-indulgent, self-promoting, and I don't mean it that way. It's just a good idea. I mean it as an author. And anyone that's written a book probably feels this way. Like you publish it and like it's done, but yet that thought is never done in your own life. And so like I go back through my book all the time. I'm like, man, I would change this, or I would improve it this way. And yet there's other times I go through the book, I'm like, dang, that was a really good thought. I forgot I had that. Like, and so I go through this book a lot. And I would just encourage you to find 5 to 8 books that really have impacted your life, and be a master at studying those books over and over and over again, instead of just like consuming 1,000 books and trying to be like everybody's approach to it is different, right? Yeah, thank you for those comments. Let me talk to you about this. It's like, this for me is what's significant, right? And if those of you that know me know that like, this is important to me. And I honestly believe, and the reason why I feel like I will never shy away from this is because I don't believe that there's business and personal. I think they go together. I don't think you can be like a business persona and a personal persona. Like so this is my family. My wife Jaclyn and I have been married 21 years, 21 and a half years. My oldest son, Ryan, is to the right. My daughter, Mackenzie, my son, Braden, in the middle, who some of you saw speak at Connect. Now he thinks he's a superstar. So thank you guys. We've created this egomaniac. No, I'm just kidding. He's great. He's a great kid, but he loves like that opportunity to be on stage and add value. And then of course my twins, Tate on the left and Jack on the right. And like, this means everything to me. And those of you that spent time with me, I hope you realize that, and whatever your family, whatever, if it's you, it doesn't matter what it looks like, but I would imagine that there's very few people ever that talk about significance that their family isn't a part of it. And my Master Networks family is important to me, and everything that I do, it drives to that. Now, the reason why this is important, and I hope to lay out the case, for those of you that have a family, that whether you have kids or grandkids or siblings, or you have employees, I think you'll find where I'm taking this is really important to them as well, and not just yourself, okay? The value that your network will bring to them is massive. The value of my partners. This is a picture of a dinner that I had with my partners last year here at Connect. You know, it was hard. It was hard. I was running behind the scenes, fixing some audio visual stuff for Connect. They're all over at dinner. I'm like, I'm supposed to be at this partners dinner, and I'm over here fixing all this tech. My wife's texting me like, we really need to get to this dinner. And so this is me kind of showing up. You can see everyone's eating and my menu's sitting in front of me. Like, I just got there, but like, I didn't want to miss it no matter what was crashing around us, because this is significant to me. This is important to me. These are the people that are important to me, right? Tina, we missed you at this dinner. I know you couldn't be there at Connect, but we talked about how valuable you were at this dinner as well. Like, this is important. My family's important. My Master Networks family is important to me, right? And I believe they are for you. And what you come to understand is, if I go back all of these years later with Master Networks, and some of you know this, but the whole thing was built on a relationship. The whole thing. Look at your business. Here's what I'd like you to do. Look at your business right now. And I want you to list the top 3 relationships, like the people right now in your business that have helped you get where you are right now. Just the top 3 people, okay? Write their names down. Like, for me, Tina's definitely one of those. We wouldn't be where we are without Tina. And I know she could list 30, 50 people in the New York, Connecticut, tri-state area that have helped that. Like, I know that piece, right? And it starts to trickle down. Which I don't draw that anymore. I did that one time, and somebody's like, oh, it looks like a pyramid scheme. It's like, well, call it whatever you want, but it's people, right? It's people that add value. Okay. Now you've got these 3 people. Now we're going to hang on to that. We'll come back to these 3 people in a minute, because I want you to think about what additional ways of value you can add back to them. Many of you guys know that years ago when I started Master Networks, I wanted this thing to expand. I wanted to impact entrepreneurs. But the wisdom that I had at the time is, I knew that I didn't have it. I knew that I didn't have the wisdom to do it. And I reached out to several people to help. And many of you know that we started this thing out with no budget. We had, I mean, this is a photo that I found in an old Dropbox drive. This was the first booth we had at a convention locally there in Minnesota. Look at this cheap banner. I think I paid like $100, and I had some lanyards. That's like all I could do and all I could afford. And this, I don't know if you can see in my eyes, like this, I look like how serious I am. Like, please come join us at Master Networks. We're about to take this thing off. And like, we just started where we were. We had 0, but I knew, yeah, vintage Master Networks. Thank you. This is so vintage. I posted this in a training the other day, and somebody's like, you look like, yes, you look so young. Thank you, Jim. You just took the words right out of my mouth. Yes. 10 years of stress of owning a business will do this, and 5 children will do this to you. Yes, I get it. You do look so young. Yes, thank you. Right? Like, we had nothing, and many of you are in this boat. So I want to give you some forward thinking to this. So as we built this thing, I reached out to somebody and I said, look, I really need some help growing this. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know how to take this to the next level. I was building my network. I was using the bond method. I had no idea exactly what it was. But as many of you know, Dave Jenks came into my life and he was super impactful. And he was for many of you. And he was for Tina. I know that to be true. You know, this was one of the last, in fact, I think this was the last photo he and I took before he passed. This was weeks before he went into the hospital. He came to the office. We were working on some stuff and we took a photo. And I put underneath it, you're only one relationship away from changing your future. Dave, for me, was one of those relationships because he saw in me what I didn't see at times. And not only did he see it, he had the strength and he loved me enough to say the things to me that I needed to hear. There was often course correction. Chaz, I think you're off course on this, or I think you need some improvement here. Like this was a relationship for me that changed everything. We know this to be true. I was just watching a replay of a conference, 10,000 people at it. It was from 2 years ago. And the gentleman in the keynote on the stage, he said this. He didn't know what he was saying exactly, but he said, hey, you're 3 relationships away from having everything you want in your life. That was exactly what he said. You're 3 relationships away from having everything in your life. And I'm like, actually, I think you're just 1. It'll turn into 3 or 5 or 7, but you're just 1. That impact will happen for you. Dave was witty, a true gentleman and a thought leader. Yes, so true. He was witty. He also was firm. And that's what I needed at that time. So now what I want you to think about just for a second, I'll get into where is, like, what are the relationships for you? Who are the people you need to connect with right now? Some of them may be on this call. You know, for me, I stood on stage at Connect and I talked about my top 100 list. And then I dropped it into a top 20. Some of you heard me talk about that journey, that skill set. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Make a list of 20 people that you want to connect with. 20, not 100. I know, like Chet Holmes talked about, I think he was the one that first talked about the Dream 100. Like you need 100 people, right? Start that list. For me, 100, and I initially started teaching that too when I read that, but for me, 100's too big. Like it was actually very hard to come up with 100 people. For me, 20 was like a sweet spot. It was like my top 20 people. And some of you know, for a long time, I had it actually taped to my back of my door. It was a big sticky pad, and I had this list of names. And many of them came into my life. Amazing how it works. And I'll share with you a couple of those, right? Amazing how that works. Most recently, I stood on stage at Connect and I said, hey, Russell Brunson is one of the people that I would love to connect with. And I said, one day that will happen. Okay, so I want you to understand this. And I'm going to share with you this story because I'm going to teach the principle of it. You will have people on your list for different reasons. Like, let me go back. Dave was on my list for the reason that I knew he could initially, because I knew he could help me grow my organization. I have somebody on my list who I want to connect with because he's a spiritual giant in my book. It has nothing to do with business. He's a spiritual giant. I want to connect with him and learn how he has done that in his life, right? Somebody just put Emily Vavra. By the way, Emily, I just connected with Emily. So whoever, Elisa, if she's on your list, let's connect because I just connected with Emily like 2 weeks ago. Isn't that amazing how that just happened right there? Okay, so let me give you the exact same thing that just happened. So this has happened probably a dozen times in my life. And Alyssa, I don't know if that's somebody you wanted to connect with or if that's just a name of somebody that impacted your business already. But let me tell you how this happened. I am at a meeting with all of my leaders. Guys, this is where it starts. This is high-level skill networking. This isn't like, hey, we go to an event, we connect with somebody. I put on my list a gentleman, and some of you know this. I put on the list Satema Gali. He was on my list like number 12 or 14. I started following him. He's a former Super Bowl player, had lost everything, had to sell his Super Bowl ring to pay for rent. And his story was really inspiring to me. And he's a great family man. He's a great leader. And I was like, that's a guy I want to connect with. Just put him on the list. That was it. And he sat there for like a year. And I'm teaching this very principle in a meeting. We go to break and I have a message on my phone from a guy that was one of the first 30 Master Networks members in the history of Master Networks. He had moved away and was in a different business. And I lost touch with him. I hadn't talked to him in 5 or 6 years. And he messages me and he says, hey, Chaz, I am in Dallas next week. I'm a new business coach working with this guy named Satema Gali. We're in Dallas next week. We're doing a workshop. I would love to see, since you have a big network, would you be able to put some people in the room? Give me a message back. Call me back. I'm like, what the heck? I just talked about this like 5 minutes ago. I'm at break. So I message him. Long story short, Satema comes out the next week. We put like 14 people in the room. His event and this is his words, was a complete disaster. They didn't get the people in the room they wanted. It wasn't a great event for him. But that's not what happened. What happened was, for me, we became friends, right? We connected. And then you noticed like 6 months later, for those of you who are Connect, he spoke on stage. He was at our event speaking on stage. And 6 months prior, I didn't even know if I would ever have met him. It gets better. At Connect, and I'm sharing these stories, so I hope you're picking up on the little things that I'm dropping in this. At Connect, I said, hey, man, I'm really grateful you came to speak at Connect. And he said, I am too. It was a great event. You have an amazing community. These people were awesome. I loved it. I said, well, what are you doing right now? He said, well, my flight got delayed, or canceled, so I'm here overnight. I said, well, man, Connect's over. It's my birthday today, which it was. I said, my wife made my favorite, which is key lime pie. Why don't you come over to my house and just hang out with us for a couple hours? He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So I brought him back, the staff. We always meet back at my house after Connect. And we stayed there for like 3 or 4 hours. By the way, he loves key lime pie because he ate half my pie. And I drove him back to the hotel, and we sat in the car for like 4 hours, like literally 4 hours, talking about business, family. I mean, it was like 1 a.m. And that's when he looked at me. He said, listen, I need to go, because the last time I sat this long in a parked car with somebody, I married her. So we need to leave. It was like hilarious. He's just a great sense of humor. And we've been friends ever since. Like, why? Because his name was on a list? Yeah, probably. That's where it starts. So here we are at Connect this last year. I'm standing on stage, and I said, I have a list of people. And someone, I think, in the audience yelled out, who's on your list, or something like that. And I listed 5 names. One of these was Russell Brunson. I think he's a marketing genius. I think what he's done in building a company, some people love him, some people don't. By the way, that's a side note. As you start to expand, there's people that love me, there's people that hate me. It's part of what being a business owner is going to happen. There's just people that don't align with you. It's okay. But I said from stage, Russell is somebody that I wanted to connect with. Guys, that was just in April. Like, we're pulling that clip where I said, I didn't know him. I knew who he was, but I had no connection to him. Just 3 weeks ago, I'm in Idaho with him and 14 other people in his category King's Inner Circle. There's only 14 people on the planet allowed in that. So for the next year, I have personal cell phone access to Russell. How did that happen? I'll share with you how that happened. It happened because I built a relationship with his top sales guy. No way to try to get to Russell. That wasn't the thing. I just loved Robbie. I thought he was a great dude. We became friends. He connected with my kids. I've served Robbie at a really high level. But if you don't like, who just put that? Put what you want out into the universe. Great. Like, that's exactly it. Right? Put that out to the universe. If you don't, it won't happen. So I put that out. Guess what? Now I'm sitting in this circle. Okay. Well, you guys know the method. It's called the bond method. Let me share with you how somebody did this to me. Okay. Let me share with you how this happened. I'm on a Facebook Live. Not my Facebook Live. I'm watching a Facebook Live of a friend of mine that spoke at Connect. Some of you may know Ken Walls. He spoke at Connect. And he had COVID, and it hit him really hard. He was in the hospital for several weeks, was at home, really struggling. I was texting him every day, saying, hey, man, I hope you're doing all right. How are you feeling? We connected with some local people there from our church. They brought meals to him, etc. Right? Just really tried to add value to his family. Well, one of the other guys that was on there, Ken, says, hey, Christopher and Chaz, you guys are both helping me out. You guys, one of you connected here, one of you connected here. You're both adding value to my family. You guys should connect. He says that live. So Christopher texts me or messages me right on the live and says, hey, man, let's connect. I said, cool, I got 30 minutes. You want to hop on a Zoom right now? Boom, we hop on a Zoom. Guess what he does to me? Bond. He didn't know it. And when I told him back, I said, you realize you just did what we teach, bond? So we have this meeting. During the meeting, I said one thing. I said, hey, he asked me the question I thought was really strange. He's like, what's one of your favorite foods? And I jokingly said, At our office, they call me the Cookie Monster. Now, please, nobody do this. Just hear me out. I said, they call me the Cookie Monster. He said, really, what's your favorite cookie? I said, I love a white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. Okay. I hang up the Zoom. I go to lunch with my wife. My in-laws were in town. And I'm at lunch and I get this text message with a picture of my front doorstep. Now, you have to know the right way to do this because this could feel really creepy. I'd never met this guy. We just had a 30-minute Zoom. He lives in Michigan. I'm in Texas. And he found a service that went out and bought, and it's hard to see in this bag. This is a bag full of white chocolate macadamia nut cookies and milk on my front doorstep within 1 hour of us having this conversation. Why does this matter? Well, I went home and took a picture of eating the cookie and I sent it back to him. Okay, not my best photo here. Now, please don't send. I need to eat better, so please don't send me cookies. Anyone that's like taking notes said Chaz white chocolate cookie. Please don't. I'm saying that from my bottom of my heart and my stomach. Please don't send those. But here's the thing: he was listening, guys. This is the higher level skill. He was listening to what, and he sent that to me. I sent him back. I said, hey, thank you. If there's anything you ever need, please let me know. Guess what? He hit me up. He said, actually, there is. I need a speaker who can speak on building relationships at my symposium next week. Would you be willing to do it? That was that simple, right? It's building on that common interest. Ken was our common interest. Okay, so let me lay this out for a second. Ken was our common interest. Guys, the skill set here is building on whatever you have in common. Right? If I was on a Zoom face-to-face with any one of you right now, the one thing we might have is we might have master networks, or we both know Tina. That's where you start. Okay. You guys know occupation exploration. I'm not going to go through every of these in total depth here, but as you know, this is the skill set that it takes. If you learn this, this is a framework that will lead you to high-level relationships that add value. I got on stage in front of Russell Brunson and 13 other business owners. Again, one of them in there does about 500 million. The other had $1 billion offer on their company. And I got 15 minutes to teach something of value. And I thought, what could I possibly teach these people they don't already know? And I taught them bond. And I want to share something that happened. And I said, not only did I teach you guys this, I'm going to walk through every one of you that I met when I got here and how I used bond when we started talking. And then they felt like I was doing some trick on them. They're like, wait, you did do that to me. So when I met Russell, if you don't know, he's super awkward. He's super socially awkward. And I knew that. Somebody told me that. So what did I build on a common interest? Well, he has twins and I have twins. His just happened to be his oldest two, mine are my youngest two. And I said, hey, Russell, it's nice to meet you. I heard you have twins, but they're your oldest, right? That was literally the first conversation I ever had with him. He lit up. He started talking about his boys. I said, how old are they? What are they into? That's where I started. Instant connection. Where everyone else, guess what they're doing when they meet him? Hey, man, it's so nice to meet you. Hey, I have this business idea I want to throw you. Or can you help me with my business? Or how did you start ClickFunnels? Or that's what they hit him with every time. I already knew that going in. That's what everyone's going to talk to him about. So I never mentioned it once. Not once did I talk about my business or his, just his family. I knew that would be important to him. And I let it go. Guys, building on that common interest takes time. And if you go too fast past that piece, you miss a tremendous opportunity. Okay. Then of course, later at some point I could ask him about business. Needs discovery. The needs discovery was fascinating. When I found out what he needs right now, that came really easy. Why? Because I built on the common interest first. Okay. Don't move too quickly through this. Don't be that person. This takes time. This is a framework. When I taught this to his team, he's asked me to come back and teach this to all his leaders. It's the bond method. It's what we do every day. For me, it seems like second nature. For him, it's like, no, I need you to teach this to all of my leaders in my company. That's pretty cool, right? 6 months ago, I'm on stage saying I would love to meet him. Now I'm going to be teaching some of his leaders. Okay. So Robbie, let me talk to you about this. And here's where I want you to take this next level. A lot of you on here know bond. You've read it in the book. You know the master skill. But where I think we miss, and Rick, you're on here. You've done this a couple of times with me as well. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. You and I have met Rick a couple of times. We've done different things. You send me a thank you card. You send me this. You send me that. Like that's That's the higher level of bond that a lot of people miss. They don't tie the loop. Okay. So Robbie, he's the lead sales guy at ClickFunnels. And he's the one that called me one day after Connect, like 3 months later. He said, Chaz, you got to call me right now. I'm like, okay, it sounds urgent. Like, I don't know if he's in the hospital, what's going on. He calls me up. He says, listen, you mentioned Russell on stage. I heard that. I heard you say that on stage. He's opening his inner circle. If you want to be in it, you got to tell me now. I was like, yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Robbie. Robbie's the one that made it happen. So I'm on a call with Robbie. He's in Boise. I found out that Boise State's like his favorite college football team. And he said to me, this is how he said it. And I'm only sharing this so you guys start to pick up on the way it happens. Robbie said to me, hey, you're in Dallas, right? I said, yes. He goes, oh, you got our hometown hero in Dallas. So what do you mean? He said, well, Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, but he's a legend here at Boise State. That's where he played. I'm like, oh, he is. He's like, yeah. What he didn't know when he said that is my radar went off because I'm friends with Kellen Moore. And so what did I do? I took that, put it in my pocket, and as Robbie made this happen, I called Kellen up for a favor and said, hey, if I get a Boise State jersey, would you sign it for my buddy Robbie? He's like, absolutely. So I ran over to his house and got it signed, right? I got it signed, and then I presented it to Robbie when we got there. So not only did I teach bond, I demonstrated it to all the people in that room. This is something, this piece of this that I've talked about today is not something I've talked a lot about. And I wish if I would go back and maybe I might do 5+1 revisited, like redo some of this. This is the piece of 5+1 in the master skill I would add to this. I would add the piece of how do you really show the value back to people who you've built this bond with. If it's just simply for referrals, that's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Jim, you said at the beginning something, and you are right. I just want to clarify. When your introduction, you said to be relational, not transactional. I love that statement. I think I was the one that started that in Master Networks, but I think it's also created a misunderstanding of what that means in Master Networks. It doesn't mean you can't ask for business. It doesn't mean you can't have a transaction in business. It just means you put the person before the transaction. Okay. In Robbie's case, he called me up and we did a transaction. It was actually an expensive, one of the most expensive transactions I've ever had to be in Russell's inner circle. But it was because of the relationship we had that happened. And so all of these relationships are important because people are watching how you build these relationships. And I hope that you see the value in a different take that I took with this. I could have gone through bond and really dig down on here's the tactical things you can do, but I wanted to help you understand what I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning about how to create these relationships at a really high level. What I've told my leadership team is, look, I'll share with you when I make mistakes in trying to build these relationships and when I do it right, and I'll share with you the benefits of what I'm doing. And I'm telling you, these types of relationships will open up the doors for you. A lot of us are looking for these next marketing tactic, and it's not that, it's the relationship. It's the who, not the what. Who could lead you? Somebody has all of the eyeballs you're looking for. They already done the hard work and the heavy lifting. Who has them? You know, one of the things you could do right now is you could go use your social media. Instead of being a consumer of it, be a producer. And when you have to consume, like one of the things I do is that I use my Instagram for this very purpose that you see on the screen. Robbie's somebody I follow on Instagram. Russell's somebody I follow. Several people out there I follow. I think some of the names on here, Satema was somebody I followed. I follow him on Instagram. My Instagram's not full of people that I don't know. The people I'm following are the people that are on my top 20 list. And when I look across on their stories, I can quickly be up to date in things that are happening. And when they drop little clues, I can send them a little gift. I can send them a little card. I can send them something that says, hey, congratulations on the publication of your new book. Hey, congrats on hitting $5 million in sales this month. They're like, how did you know that? Well, you posted it in a story like a week ago. You see what I'm saying? That's how I'm using social media to stay in tune with the people in my top 20. And if you're not sure of the value these relationships leave, and I'll wrap with this and then open it up for any questions. If you're not sure the value that this leaves, I want you to understand, if you have, like I talked about at the very beginning, if you have a family, if you have people in your life, if you have employees they're watching how you're building these relationships, they're watching and it's making an impact. I learned a couple of years ago that there's nobody in my circle. I can't have anyone in my circle that isn't a good influence, because my kids see that too. I can't tell my kids, go to school, pick your friends wisely. You know, the things I say to my kids, show me your friends, I'll show you your future, that kind of thing. If I'm doing it differently, my kids are watching. Some of you have heard this story. A couple of years ago, I came back from a trip. I actually think it was when I was in New York a couple of years ago. I came back and my wife relayed this conversation, which she ended up putting on Facebook. And she said this on Facebook. She said, my conversation with Tate before bed, which is one of my twins. Tate said, Mom, when I grow up, my name's going to be Dave. She said, no, son, when you grow up, your name will still be Tate. He said, no, I want my name to be Dave. She said, why do you want to change your name? Said, when you grew up, you changed your name to Mom, which, you know, that's a 7-year-old's logic. He said, I want to change mine to Dave. To which Dave replied, when I grow up, I want my name to be Tate. Dave was a huge influence, not just on me, but my family. Why did my son say he wanted to change his name to Dave? Because Dave was in my home. Dave came to my kids' football games. Dave was somebody Dad talks about. Dave was somebody that Dad looked up to. And Tate saw that. Tate knew that Dave was influential in my life. If you think for 1 minute, and again, you don't have to have children at home, you don't have to have, but your team, your people, your customers, they will see who you associate with. And if you think for one moment that networking is some passive skill that helps you just grow your business, that's okay, that can work. But even for the small little introverted kid that couldn't hold a soccer ball in front of his face to take a photo, you can build relationships with people. The people are the value. Your business is a platform. It's a free permission slip to go out and build relationships with people. Are you taking advantage to the best way possible to build the relationships? And this is why I call it the master skill. It is a skill. And I believe the next, and I say this with a little bit of hesitation because I know it gets misunderstood, the next successful millionaires, et cetera, in business, the most successful businesses will be those who are really good with people. If you look around, you'll see these businesses who are detaching. They're getting so process-oriented and technology-oriented, there's a disconnect with people. If you can dive in and be connected to people, and you use the skills that are right there. People just want to be heard. They want to be valued. They want to be loved. And if you can show that right now, I'm telling you, it's the fastest path to success, and you will get the most value out of your business, regardless of dollars. Dollars are important. Please don't misunderstand me. They grow. They're the lifeblood of a business. But you'll get more value from the human capital of your business by really plugging into this process and building your business this way. Tina, thank you for the invite. It's been an honor to be with you guys, and I'm definitely open for any questions that might be out there. But I wanted to take just a different approach, Tina, than just going through Bond exactly, but give a high-level view and share with you some of the things that I've been working on in some of these relationships to just give a couple little nuances to it. So I hope that was helpful. Tina, I'm going to turn it back to you.
You're kidding? That was awesome. Thank you so much. Chaz, I talk about you, and I wanted these people to meet you. And I think they really did that today. And that's what, it's not sitting up here, blah, blah, blah. It's more important, like they got to see you, and they got to see you as I know you. So thank you for that. Thank you for being, real. Would anybody have any questions? Could you, just want to remove, So does anybody have any questions? Raise your hand. We can take some. Let's kind of wave frantically if anybody has anything to say, comments, questions. Anybody? He stunned you with his, oh, there's Rick Gabrielli. Go ahead, Rick. Unmute yourself.
I just want to say thank you, Chaz, for bringing this wonderful gift to us. And as I mentioned in the comments, our responsibility now is to share this gift with others. So I appreciate you. I know that you've given Tina an amazing gift, and this whole region thanks you. Love you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Anybody else? David, you have your unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. So, Chaz, I just joined Master Networks 2 weeks ago.
Well,
and
welcome.
I can't tell you how much value I've got in just those 2 weeks. And I appreciate you being vulnerable with us and really kind of explaining the bond perspective or concept in a much more deep and profound way. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Welcome to Master Networks.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Oh, Amir.
Chaz, I am looking straight in the camera so that we can make eye contact. One of the favorite songs that I have that I listen to multiple times during the month is Amazing Grace. And I love that song because it connects you with the true reality, what humanity is about and what we can do for each other when we are found. And I want to thank you for the fact that you found us, that we found you, and of course, the person that sits on the pedestal that connected us is Tina Campbell. So during this month, I am grateful and express my sincere gratitude that you all have created this community that we really feel proud of connecting with. So bravo, happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Oh, thank you, Amir. It's good to see you again.
And Chaz, I do credit Amir was the one who sat me down. Gosh, Amir, what was it, like 5.5 years ago? And he said, "What is this?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What is this?" He says, "What are your core values?" Everything. So my relationship to you, Chaz, and my growth and development came through that meeting with Amir.
Let me just make a comment about that. Something that just struck me as you said that. I don't know how to articulate this, and so I'm going to do my best, but it's interesting. This organization, Rob talks about it, which we've adopted, the organization of opportunity. He talked about that with me. Like this organization, though, I think, and I get it, because I'm sort of a face, I get a lot of credit for things, and I understand. But the reality is that all of what you see, all came from members. It gets missed, right? So this is an organization of opportunity. So Amir says that to you or whatever, you guys start, and then you and I got together and we get this community together and we build the core values. But so just as an example, do you see how I think people think, well, this is thousands of members. Yes, it is. But the impact and the ability to impact the future of Master Networks still lies within our members. We have lots of channels where we hear things and those get implemented from you. So as much as I appreciate these awesome messages, and I thank you for them, I want to thank you, because I can stand on stages, and I do it a lot, and I talk about Master Networks, and the reason I can do it so confidently is because I know on the back end, when people come into our community, they get to meet people like you, and we live what we say we are. Now, we're not perfect. We can always make improvements, but we live what we say we are. And that gives me a tremendous amount of gratitude and confidence when I refer people to our chapter. So thank you.
So Chaz, we have 2 more people that want to say something. I just wanted to introduce you. We have a few people on this call that are our international members now.
Oh, awesome.
So Roland and Frank are coming in from the Netherlands. Bodil, who's got her hand up, is coming from Scotland. We have people coming from Israel. We have, it's really amazing what's happening right now. So I'd like Bodil, could you say something? And then we'll end with AB.
Yep, absolutely. I am so pleased to be here. Chaz, I want to tell you that Tina, Rob Genovese, Jeff Levin, AB, and so many more other people just made me want to join Master Networks from all this way on the other side of the pond, because the energy, the commitment, just the warmth from everyone, it is so sincere, and I'm loving it.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Oh, welcome. So nice to, Tina has shared this with me before, and I was like, wait, I didn't realize y'all were on this call. So it's so nice to meet you.
Thank you. You
So
too.
we got AB and then Stephanie, and then we'll head out.
So, Chaz, that was so awesome. Thank you so much. And speaking of which, this is a season of thanks, of gratitude. And I am just so thankful for this family, for Master Networks. The first time I went to a mixer, before I ever joined, like the first person I met was, you got to meet this person sitting at the bar there, Tina Campbell. And right from the first minute, Liz and I were there, and it was just this warm, welcoming feeling. And what I could say is this, not only is this the season of thank you, this is the season of giving. And I just share this with everyone because I mean this from the bottom of our heart. This is not networking. This is really a gift. So it would be, every single person here is remiss and not doing Master Networks justice if you don't give this gift of what we have to people. And what does that mean? It's so simple. If you like what you do at your meeting every week or other meetings you go to, just invite to come, because that's how we've grown so much, because we just invite, because this is a gift. So, continue to give. And Chaz, thank you. We are so grateful for what has been created here. And Tina, look, we can't say enough about you. She created this from one person who's in the networking group. I am. Oh, you are. So there we are. Thank you.
Well, how wonderful it is that we have families. We have Liz and AB Gabor, and they're both in leadership in a double master chapter. They just hit 50. And he runs it and Liz runs it. Like, it is 1 hour of, it's incredible. It's a power hour.
Can I say something really quick before we go to Stephanie? Several people are messaging me privately saying, how can we connect? Guys, if you're in workplace, you can connect with me in workplace. For me, it's like, then I know if somebody's in workplace, they're part of Master Networks, because I get hit all on social media, email, all that stuff. So just go into workplace and you can message me in there, and I'm happy to connect with any of you there.
Yeah, and I'll put it out in the newsletter this week, how to get into workplace, so that you all have that ability. Stephanie, go ahead, take us out.
So I just wanted to say thank you to you, Chaz. That was amazing. Thank you to Tina for starting this region. And really, it is about how you make people feel. And you just shared how you feel. And that really is the legacy, right? That we keep sharing how this makes us all feel. And keep training people with the training that Master Networks University provides to all of us, right? So that's how we keep spreading this and spreading the legacy.
And thank you, Stephanie, for everything you do. And Sammy, thank you. She just put the workplace link in the chat. So if you guys want to do that, you'll go in there and you'll do some things, and they'll admit you. And it's really wonderful. You can speak to support staff in there. So, don't blow Chaz up today. But anyway, just Chaz, your friendship, your mentoring, your family that you shared with me, great to see you last week, just to spend time with you. The HQ staff is unbelievable. I'm not kidding. I always say, call them if you need them. They're so nice. And that's what we do here. So Chaz, I can't thank you enough. You really blew it out of the park. So thank you, dear.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you for leading the country, this entire region. You guys don't know this maybe, but you lead the entire region. You're the lighthouse of culture for our entire organization. So thank you for living that and being that, and please continue it.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We're thankful for you.
Thanksgiving.
And let us know how we can be of service to you. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, thank you.